What's up, guys? Welcome back to the 3 Up podcast. Long time no see, but I think the championship brought us out of hiding. Um, I'm here with Raz
Hey.
and Tom's,
Hello, hello.
and we're here to discuss the complete kerfuffle, whatever word you want to insult, ending to the 2021 F1 season. Definitely did not disappoint on excitement levels. I think we only have one topic, and it's how we feel about the title ending and the team's reactions. And I don't know, trying to make sense of it all. It's going to be that burn after reading movie. I guess we learn not to do it again. Um, I guess we're just going to start. Max Verstappen wins the 2021 championship. He wins it with Red Bull. Only other team to win under the hybrid era that is not Mercedes. He's the first Dutch world champion. He's one of the youngest world champions besides Fernando Alonso. And he won it in spectacular fashion on the last lap of the last race. And he prevents Hamilton from breaking another Schumi record, probably the most substantial one.
Yep.
And I guess we're going to go into kind of that last race. I mean, kind of see Mercedes definitely had the pace more than Red Bull in that race. And they kind of got lucky in a couple cents with Perez, with the safety car, with just a whole load that they just pit stops. They were able to keep Max just close enough to give him a chance, the entire team. And maybe Michael Massey if that's your cup of tea. So, what do you guys think? I mean, take it away. I mean, we're starting kind of where you want to start.
Well, I think Red Bull, if I may start quickly, before we get into all of the shenanigans, I think Red Bull have not gotten enough credit about the way they managed the race from the point when it all seemed to go tits up for them. First of all, the overtaking maneuver on lap one by Max was completely a legitimate one. And then it was exactly the same thing as happened in Saudi Arabia before the first red flag, for which Max was asked to give the position back, on the restart. So the fact that Hamilton goes off of the track creates a 1.5 second gap, and it's not even asked to not forget penalty, but just give the position back when Max was able to stay on track was
Yeah, all he did was give the advantage back.
Yeah, it was questionable.
I don't understand.
That was absolutely just scandalous. But after that, obviously Mercedes had the better package for the last four races, so it was nothing new. But I think Max and Red Bull as a whole approached this race such a competitive way. Max already has talked about in multiple interviews how he knew that he did not have the pace, but he said, okay, at least I will drive and push as much as possible so that they will not have the safety car window or even the virtual safety car window. Then Perez fights like a warrior and just deletes like 7 or 8 seconds of Hamilton's advantage.
That was my favorite part
terrific.
of the entire
Just for that, I'm pretty sure Helmut Marko has given him carte blanche in terms of contract.
And rightfully so.
You could stay here for as long as you like. You could stay with us in the Red Bull family until you decide to hang up your helmet.
That was the one thing, I thought about at the end. I don't know who I was talking to about it, but I like Albon, and Gasly's a completely different driver a few years ago than he is now, but they signed Perez for that exact moment.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's why they signed Perez. That's why they wanted it on the team, because Albon could not do that. In 5 years, 4 years, I could eat my words. Albon could be an F1 and he could be a good driver like that. But Perez, with the wealth of experience in a midfield car and making that car as wide as possible and using the power deficit to actually his advantage was spectacular.
That was so good to see, and
that was
then,
actual racing.
That was proper racing.
Wheel and everything like that. And then the hypocrisy that came after that was just like, are you bloody kidding me? Right, so no, but anyways.
But and then the whole this is where Mercedes, in my opinion, lost the race. The VSC
Where
for
was
Antonio.
Bottas is basically what you were saying.
That's also another thing. But
Yeah.
but the VSC for Antonio Giovinazzi, why did they not pit? And they if they had pitted Hamilton under the VSC, even if the safety car happens at the end, and even if the whole last lap showdown happens, Lewis would have had 20 laps approximately fresher tires to fight for that last lap, and he was actually pretty close on that last lap anyway.
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
Yeah,
that
he had the
last
pace
lunge.
advantage. He had the pace advantage.
And the straight line advantage as well, straight line speed advantage. So that's where they lost, and that's where I think Red Bull also, they were lucky, but they forced the luck. They were proactive. They were on the front foot. They knew that it was kind of like, okay, we have nothing to lose anyway. Yes, but they made all the right decisions, and Max was fast enough to push, and Red Bull as a team, not just Max, not just Christian Horner, not just Sergio, but as a team, have not gotten enough credit about how they forced the luck and how they forced this race to themselves and put themselves into a position where a one-lap showdown could actually work out. So that would be like the before we get in all of the bullshit. That's the thing that I would like to say is that they didn't get enough credit about the decisions that they made, which were fantastic decisions.
Yeah, and I'd like to just further add to that Red Bull have been doing that all season. That's why when Horner at the beginning of the year was saying and when they signed up Perez as like, we need a driver that's going to be up there for the moments that matter, and the one moment that mattered, Perez was there. And it wasn't just here, but also look back at
Turkey.
Look back at USA when they
Turkey.
forced Mercedes, because Mercedes for all these years have had it easy with strategy. Even if they did do a strategy blunder, no problems. We've got the pace. You could go out there. You've heard it many times before with James Vowles coming on the radio saying, "Oh, sorry, Lewis, this was our mistake, but you could do it. You've got the pace." And then he goes and does it, right? And it just makes him look even more biblical and everything like that. But the thing is, Red Bull know that the only way they could stop Mercedes is by by basically playing 4D chess. I know that joke is a joke, but at the end of the day, the whole strategy game is a chess game, right? You got your two. If you got two against one, you're more than likely gonna have the better strategy because you could dictate it, even if you are in a weaker position. Whereas if you're in a stronger position and you've got two against one, the other one ain't gonna have a hope in hell. Like it's just the way things have been with throughout the whole season. Where Red Bull, you got to give them credit for playing the strategy so hard, forcing Mercedes to do things that they really don't want to do. That's why you had France again, same thing. They forced Mercedes, right? So Mercedes had to say, and then even the other time where Mercedes were able to do something like that was Barcelona, whereby they were able to force the strategy onto Red Bull because Red Bull only had one driver up there. So it was like, right, okay, Lewis, go for the extra stop, fresh new tires, and then guns it to the end and wins it, right? So yeah, it is a bloody team sport, right? The drivers are the gladiators and everything like that we see and celebrate and everything like that. But the strategy that Red Bull have been doing every bloody time, they tried everything, and up until lap 46 or 40, whatever it was, 10 laps before the end, as Christian Horner famously said, we need a miracle, and then a few laps later they got that. But again, with the strategy calls, they always tried everything. They just were literally low on power compared to Mercedes. So they, credit for snatching that win the way they did. And we could get into the BS and all that stuff shortly afterwards. But the whole thing comes down to Mercedes resting on their laurels too much throughout the season, and not just this race, throughout the season. And remember, the championship is won over the course of a season, not just the last four races where Mercedes have been better. But that's one thing we need to remind everyone, that the championship was over 22 bloody races. Let's be honest.
Right, I will get into that shortly. I have a special point for that. Yeah.
Oh, me too. Me too. I mean, the amount of people we could shoot down with their conspiracy theories and everything like that. It's like, look, even if this race was taken out, Max would have still won the championship.
Yep.
But But anyways, that's my take on the goings on over the week. Obviously, for the majority of the race, I was like, especially after lap 1 and then that failed thing that didn't happen, it was like, oh god, lap 40, I was literally thinking, that's it. You know what? Hamilton's won it. He's got the 8. Mercedes have got that. Game over. Let's just look forward to next year. I was literally thinking that. I don't know about you guys.
I'll make a confession here.
Yeah.
I'm going to be chastised for this because it was the last race. But, when you're a U.S. fan and you're waking up for 16, 17, 18 of the races at 5, 6 a.m., it gets old. So I'm exhausted, and I'm laying in bed watching this Grand Prix. And I'm sitting there, the Perez fight kind of rejuvenated me. I kind of woke up a little bit. I was like, okay. By lap 44, I turned it off. I put the phone down. I said, I'm getting another extra sleep.
No.
I'm going to wake up, and it's going to be 8-time world champion stuff. I wake up at 9:30.
Yeah.
So an hour later, I wake up at 9:30. I get up, open Instagram. I'm like, okay, here's going to say, Lewis Hamilton here, 8-time champion. Go, and it says Max wins. And I'm like, I just loaded up my phone. I was like, what?
Really?
Am I still dreaming?
I was like, what happened? Because they didn't have a lot of footage out. Because it was, it just
happened.
Yeah. And I looked and I was going, and then I saw the Latifi safety car, and I was just like, okay, so he has to get him here. There's some switch. And then I ended up, watching that last few laps over and over and over again. And of course, I've watched the entire ending in that race probably 3-4 times since, probably more. Highlights probably more. But yeah, it was. They did need a miracle, and I just thought, I've seen this story so many times. The majority.
You can't make this shit up.
The majority of my F1 watching career has been the hybrid era, and so all I've seen is that spoof. Lewis Hamilton wins. That's all it is, and I'm like,
the one Nico Rosberg win.
Yeah,
right. But
and it's here, and it's of course then Mercedes still won. They smoked everybody that season too, so it's like, and to have this was Red Bull did good.
Has it settled in, guys? Because for me, it still feels unbelievable in a good way, but it still hasn't settled in for me.
I think it's settled in. I feel like I think I put it in our group chat. I feel a little. I'm trying to think of the word. It's kind of flat to me.
Yeah.
And I think
a bit underwhelmed.
Yes, underwhelming would be it. And I think the only sense is I didn't like, and I guess we're going to get into it now. I didn't like the amount of decisions the FIA made throughout the entire season because it just felt like it robbed the title a little bit too much.
Oh, God, yeah.
It just felt everything was kind of a little orchestrated, a little bit too much. It's like, when you watch a football game or a basketball game and the refs are just calling everything.
Yes.
Can I just add on that?
Yeah, I'm like, can I watch the sport a little bit? And that's kind of how I felt.
Okay, so basically dubious decisions, right? Let's start from the top. It all started, as far as I'm concerned, okay, and I'm speaking as neither a Lewis supporter or a Max supporter, just a general fan of the sport. It all started from Bahrain, let's be honest. Right?
Yes.
29 laps, Lewis was able to go wide and gain a tenth of a second.
Even more.
29 laps. Yeah. Whatever, at turn 4. Okay. The one time Max does it, hand it back or have a 5-second penalty. I mean, if anything, Max should have taken built up a 5-second gap because he was that much faster and then worry about it later, in that regard. But it started from there, and then at the time we didn't think much of it. But as the season progressed, it always in the back of my head, it was always going back to like, okay, this is how this season's gonna go. Bahrain, just remember Bahrain, just remember Bahrain, and then it got. Since Qatar, it's just been an absolute shit show in terms of all the decisions that were being made. Like you're saying, it was made for Netflix, right?
But the thing is, those are decisions on track. I mean, another thing is like people talk about the FIA and how it was anti-Mercedes. It's just such bullshit because you go back to the rear wings flexing. That was the rules were reorientated after Mercedes put a complaint in. The pit stops.
The amount of time Mercedes have had throughout this whole hybrid era, Mercedes have had
their way.
The FIA in their pocket, so to say, is like we don't even have to look at this year. Look at what happened at the end of 2019 with the whole Ferrari engine start, and then during the pre-season test. Mercedes were lobbying the FIA to, show us what you did to them, kind of thing, and all that stuff. It was just the Mercedes. It was. I know the joke is ridiculous, but it was genuinely mafia. Mercedes or assistance for international automobiles or whatever it was called, right? Instead of Ferrari international assistance,
but this season, right? The rear wings that. They said, they're flexing too much, and then they reinforce the rules, and Red Bull wins anyway, so that's kind of flat. Then you have the pit stops, which were nerfed, which was like the strong point
because Red Bull were too fast.
Then somebody complains about it, and then those get nerfed. Like Red Bull were put through the ultimate shit throughout the year. People want to talk about the FIA doing something for Red Bull. Shut up. Honestly.
No, and exactly. And on that point of the pit stops and these rule changes mid-season, right? The pit stop thing was uncalled for. If you think about it, right? The Monza clash would not have happened because of the pit stop.
I was just thinking about that, and I watched that clip again.
I mean, it was a slow stop for Max. It was a slow stop for Lewis, first of all. Then it was a slow stop
slow stop for Max. It was like...
Yeah, exactly. So then... And the gap difference, basically, if you would have taken those 2 seconds out, he would have been 2 seconds up the road already through the turn 1-2 shift.
It would never happen.
And it would have never happened, right? And Max would have gone on to finish ahead of Lewis that time out. Whether he would have won or not, that's another story because the McLarens were genuinely strong.
But that's irrelevant, isn't it?
Yeah, but the thing is that's what's the difference between P2 and P3, right? It's 5 points, right? If you take out the fastest at that point. 5 points.
It is.
Okay. 5 points dropped right there for Max. Okay. And obviously Red Bull in the constructors as well, because, that counts against Mercedes. And then the whole penalties for engine change malarkey, right? My goodness. Honda, I give credit to Honda for this, were able to push Mercedes out their comfort zone that they had to take the engine penalties because they couldn't always run them. They had to run them at much higher power than they usually do just to maintain the advantage. So their reliability was completely cocked up. But since then they discovered that, okay, if we take a five place cop, we know we could take 4 engines for the next 4 races.
And the spectacular thing was they had the monumental crash in Silverstone. I mean, Max was the one that DNF. They had damage on Max's car more than they had anything on the Mercedes. I'm not going to count Bottas because he wasn't in it. So for them to push Mercedes like that, and
that is a biblical
not have to take all that. Their engines have become so reliable and so high powered. It's absolutely insane that we're thinking 5 years ago they couldn't, do 10 laps in a McLaren.
3 laps more like.
Yeah,
but Andrew, on that
I was there. I remember I was there at that first test post-season Abu Dhabi, right? And the McLaren garage always had those
blinders
shutters in front of it, right? Those blinds. And it was like, come on. And then you got Pascal Wehrlein in the Mercedes bombing it round, taking fastest lap, fastest lap, fastest lap, doing really well for himself, and everyone else just bombing it around. And then finally, I remember it was late in the afternoon. I was ready to go home, right? And it was like, oh, McLaren goes out for one installation lap, comes back in, and that's it. You don't see it again. Just the installation lap, right? And that's how terrible. And to credit to Honda and Red Bull and the Red Bull family, along with AlphaTauri, Toro Rosso, whatever you want to call them, for getting their shit together. And
But you know what it is? You know what it is?
Yeah.
Both Max and Perez had to take one extra PU. They would not have needed to had they not been crashed out by Mercedes. So basically, it was only because Mercedes had damaged them that they had to do it. They would have gone on the whole season with the three.
You know what that reminds me of? That whole Monty Python sketch of the Black Knight. You know, oh no, 'tis but a scratch, and it still carries on. I mean, that's what the Red Bulls were. Essentially, it was a David versus Goliath thing, right? Yeah. You know, you got the massive Goliath that is Mercedes, AMG, Petronas F1, who've been unjustly ruling over our sport, right? You know, if we're going to talk about justice and everything like that, I'm sorry, they've monopolized the whole shit. I mean, when Ferrari were a threat for, I don't know, half a season, because that's what Ferraris have always been.
Yeah.
They come out the blocks
60%, 65%. They hit Belgium
Yeah.
and they start nosediving.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, I'm sorry, it's just wrong, and it was just so wrong. And then finally, that's why I feel like, you know, okay, it got messy and dirty and downright, you know, well, let's be honest, despicable between the two camps, right? Because it was
my whole thing is they allowed the interpretation to become too, I guess, wide. So they allowed the interpretation of the rules to be very bendable, very loose. And so when you do that, you're going to have lobbying and then if you can influence, if Mercedes can start influence, which they did, Red Bull's going to do the same. And
no, that whole lobbying thing only started this year. I mean, if you read
but it was the entire
even
season.
Toto Wolff admits in his hostage video that he did the other day. Oh my goodness, right? He went full hostage, you know, like someone had died, you know, he was wearing that black polo and whatnot, and then you know, he basically said, because someone asked him, it's like, all right, this whole thing that about lobbying, where do you stand on that? It's like, maybe we did kind of take the piss out of it, right? It's like, no shit, you did, because like you're saying, it's like
what I mentioned earlier, and I'm not. There was a lot, like there's always been politics in the sport, right? And I brought this up, I think, one of the last times we talked, but it is so apparent now. Like usually it's kind of behind a closed door. Maybe the door's like, you know, open a little bit and you can hear it. But this is like you're in the room and it's
there is no door. The whole thing is just open.
It's an auditorium and it's just so blatantly obvious, and that's kind of, I don't know. It just takes the racing point out of it, and for them to be this inconsistent the entire season, it goes and says, "Okay, I'm gonna bring it up now," which is the safety car. So Latifi crashes, right? Stewards are great. You mentioned they were extremely quick, and that was what prompted us to have one last lap of racing. But they were so obsessed with getting one lap of racing, which is fine and good.
Yeah.
That's fine.
That was the remit on that particular moment.
Yeah.
In terms of the whole thing, it's like, right, let's get him out the way. And the thing is, I could explain to everyone how it works, okay? Because I've been as a trackside marshal, I've done the practice, and everything. So basically, what happens is, say for example, there was a crash at my. Obviously, I started as a track marshal, so I know. Say, for example, there was a crash at my corner or my post, okay? I was at turn 14, okay? First thing that happened, there's 3 people in contact with race control, clerk of the course, and also the intervention team, okay? So you got your people waving the flags, so that will be the double yellows and the green and whatnot. You got your intervention marshals who have to go out there and make sure everything's safe, because there's the fire risk, there's the risk to the driver themselves, and also then you've got the recovery team. Okay, and by God, those guys in Abu Dhabi, they are fast, right? I mean, I know how they work and everything like that, but essentially, they, they're to blame for doing their job too good.
well. But the thing
But
is,
no, but essentially what happens is throughout the whole process of the recovery, there's someone talking to the clerk of the course who is in direct contact, who is up there with Massey, okay, the race director. So he knows Massey can't physically be there to see what's happening, right? Unless there's a fucking red flag. Right, so essentially, it's like someone's just talking me through. It's like, right, okay, we've put the fire out. There was a fires on the brakes and everything like that. Track recovery vehicles coming in and everything like that. And then there's dialogue between them, back and forth, saying, okay, fine. How soon can you get it done? Because we need to finish this race under. It's like, okay, fine. Cars being mounted up and everything like that. Okay, what's the status of the track? Blah de blah. All the rest of it. There's always someone giving a live commentary of what the hell is happening. So based on that, and also at the same time, the safety car isn't its real name. It's the pace car. Keyword being pace, right? So when Hamilton was complaining that the safety car is going too slow, he was basically, because they didn't have enough laps and they wanted to, there was that whole remit of finishing behind, the last lap with one racing lap. The safety car had to slow down to give it, to pace. They had to pace it out so to give the marshals enough time to quickly do their job as quick as possible. And that corner is a very awkward corner. If it happened anywhere else, it would have been a lot easier, right? You could have just covered it in double yellows, right? But that corner, because it's right on the Marina and right past the hotel, you really are in a pickle there. Yeah, I mean, it is just...
There's one line there.
Yeah, there's no other way through. Yeah, that's the other thing. And right on the other side, guess what? You got boats, you got people, celebrating and whatnot, and yeah. So first things first is making sure that the driver's alive and well. Okay, so you tell race control, okay, driver's breathing, driver's alive and well. Usually what happens is driver gives a thumbs up because you ask him, it's like, are you okay? And you can't hear him and everything like that. You just do all these hand signals and whatnot. And the driver, as soon as he's able to get out by himself and everything like that, he has to jump through the catch fencing and everything. Make sure he's out the firing line, because the last thing you want is a death, right? Let's be honest. And then it's just the recovery of it, and the pace car had to slow down to give that chance.
It wasn't even
and
the
at the
pace.
same time, because Massey was concentrating on the actual incident, as in doing his job, he had two bickering kids going at him in the sense of in the form of Toto Wolff and Christian Horner only went at him because Toto Wolff was going at him, right? Saying no safety car. I know people who work there, right? I'm pretty sure the last thing I want to see is one of my mates die because Toto Wolff was too desperate to win a title.
Well, it was unprofessional for both of them to do it, but the big thing for me was always is okay, they got it done, but I honestly don't think it would have made the result any different. But to let half the lap cars go and then not release the other lap cars looks orchestrated. Okay, so it looks it looks like, oh, we are setting up Max to win this championship, right? In retrospect, if you know the sport, it doesn't make a damn difference. It does.
Yeah, because guess what? The overriding rule is by
all lap cars get to.
No. It's any.
Any.
Overriding rule.
That's the thing.
Any.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's any. It's not all. But the thing is, overriding rule comes from the race director. The race director has to direct the race. That's it, right? Main concern, safety. Right, okay. Latifi, he's safe. His car is out the way. Track is safe. Is there any debris that will cause any punctures or anything like that? No. Marshals did a brilliant job of sweeping everything up. Brilliant. Okay, can we go racing again? Yes, we can. Okay, fine. Let's do it as quickly as possible and do that. So that's what they had to do. However, because Massey needed about a lap or two from turn 14 to get the assessment of, okay, what the fuck has happened, right? In terms of after the safety car is deployed. So that way he could build up a picture. Obviously, there's a CCTV camera at every marshal post to show that race directors could see and see what's going on. the worst thing was, like, we got the radio messages from Toto Wolff and the lobbying as to like, no, don't allow and everything like that, and to unlap and everything, just because Mercedes didn't pit Lewis.
Yeah.
Right. They started lobbying.
And can I just interject?
Mercedes just made a strategic problem. Had they pitted, both drivers would have been on softs for one lap.
And this is the thing, and Andrew pointed out. And listen, I am not here to defend the FIA. I don't know the rules, right? I don't read the regulations like that, right? That's why they're setting up the commission. Let them find out what's happened. So that's none of my business. I do agree that it was the word I would use is confusing. Why did five cars were able to overtake the safety car or the pace car, and the rest of the two didn't? That's confusing. That you could argue, you could make a case it was a bit on the iffy side.
On the nose.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Lewis is in trouble because Mercedes had fucked up the strategy, which I alluded to at the beginning. So the thing is like Red Bull still have to go out there and overtake, but Red Bull had to put themselves in the position whereby if something crazy happens like it did, they were in a position to take advantage of that. And this is where I go back to my initial point. Red Bull have not gotten enough credit about the way they approached this race. And you can say that, oh, well, Mercedes had it covered anyway. Well, obviously they didn't. Right? Obviously they didn't. And even if Hamilton hits and Verstappen stays out and you have a reverse situation, Hamilton overtakes him on fresh tires.
Yeah, and then he looks like a genius, like everyone wants him to look like, and everything like that. The other thing was that caught me out. I was going through the whole last few laps. Alonso's team radio said everything. Okay, pretty much. Alonso, as soon as the safety car was out, because obviously Alonso was one of the drivers that was a lap down and in between Max and Lewis. So Alonso basically said, so when should we get ready to overtake the safety car?
Mm-hmm.
And then the call came that no, they won't be doing it. And then Alonso was like, he laughed about it in that sort of very sarcastic way as to like, ha ha ha, very funny, they're doing this again now, right? Obviously, Alonso has his beef and history, but the thing is, if Alonso knew and to be ready to unlap himself.
Well, they all did. You look at some of the there's other drivers that were asking about it.
Exactly. And
I think Ricardo was.
And the other thing was those five drivers that were in between post race when they caught up with them. I don't know if you saw the interviews and everything like that. They all said we were, regardless if they were going to move us out or not, we were always going to jump out the way. That was their remit anyway. Right?
Because they don't want to interfere with the championship.
They don't want any part of that.
That's why Alonso did that, sarcastic laugh of like, you got to be fucking kidding me, right? What's going on here? He knows what was going on because, he's, level 2000 IQ of racing.
El
remember,
Plan.
He's done, El Plan, right? He's El Plan, right? I mean, that whole thing. That was the only thing out of that weekend which I really enjoyed.
That was funny.
Plan.
I like that they did something like that.
I mean, they took a meme off the internet. Literally, because that's where it all started from. And I thought, you know what? Let's just stick that on the
back of his car. Like,
no, both of them had it. Even Ocon's car
had it.
Yeah. Just check the shot. Both of them had El Plan. And then I saw the tweet from the graphic designer, the livery designer, and he was like, I'm so glad they allowed me to do this because he's like an F1 fan. He does all the laugh and jokes and everything like that. He joins in with the fun and everything like that. And I think the whole thing started as like, maybe we should. It was more of a fan thing that started where on Twitter where people were just like, hey, so and so, why don't you just stick that on the back of his wing now, right? Because he's achieved El Plan, right, and everything like that. And then the higher ups at Team Enstone obviously thought, you know what? That's a good way of doing it. Let's keep it for the other season. And he was like properly grateful about it as to like, thanks you guys. We got this done. El Plan. I suppose next year's livery is going to have it on the main sort of.
It's going to be like the McLaren side.
On the side.
They had, Kimi. And... Go ahead.
Can I go on a rant a little bit? Because I haven't done one in a while. Listen, we just talked about the whole the confusing, I would say, end of the race. And listen, you can wherever you stand, right? Let's say, for argument's sake, that Lewis was really unlucky, and he was, and Max was really lucky, and he was. But the FIA's decisions, as confusing as they were, I hate to break it to anyone, they didn't cost Lewis the championship. They cost Lewis this race. They didn't cost him the championship. And my biggest beef with the whole situation is, after an end of the season, as controversial as it may be, we are acting as if the previous 21 races didn't happen, and as if the whole season at all didn't happen.
No. Apparently, I get what you're saying. The season only started 4 races ago.
Yeah, exactly. But I'll just remind people something, and I will use the great Martin Brundle and his column this week on Sky Sports. Just a few facts, because we're living in a world of feelings and opinions. We don't have any facts anymore.
How dare you?
Yeah, how dare I? Listen, here's the thing. Max led 652 laps throughout the season. Lewis 303, so that's 349 laps difference. Oh my God!
I'm getting triggered by facts.
Oh my God! Max had the most pole positions. Max departed 15 out of the 22 races leading the championship, so that's what, like 70%-ish, even more. Mm-hmm. He had more race wins. He had more podiums. He was more consistent. And oh, by the way, he would have won in Baku. He was taken out in Silverstone by Lewis in a very, very dangerous maneuver.
So he would have finished P2 anyway.
At the very least. But not only that, it was a very dangerous maneuver as well. 51 Gs put him in a hospital, and then they celebrate like they just won the championship after doing something like that. And then Bottas takes him out in Hungary. So that's that's 3 races, right?
And then the pit stop nerf.
Pit stop nerf. Imola thing, the red flag, where Lewis would have ended in P7 at the very best, right? This idea that this championship was decided on one race, or that Lewis was unlucky.
On one lap. One lap.
I just it puzzles my mind. Like, how can we sit here? I'm not we, obviously, we know the facts, but like this narrative that's being pushed out there, that the 21 races before didn't happen, that Max wasn't the better driver over the course of the season, that he wasn't the most consistent driver, that he wasn't the best qualifier, that he wasn't the best performer, that he wasn't the most consistent performer. Like, you look back at this season.
Can I add
last point. This is one of the most complete seasons ever by any driver I've ever seen. And oh, by the way, he was going up against one of the greatest drivers of all time. And oh, by the way, he didn't always have the best car as well.
I was just going to say that. The whole, best car thing and everything like that.
That's also bullshit, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Because the thing is, the best car is the best optimized package. That's
precisely
the power unit. That's including the suspension setup. That's including the aero. It's a compromise, right, to work across all 20-odd races. And I'm sorry, but Mercedes themselves, when they do their, fan videos and everything like that, talking about the car on the Monday or the Wednesday, their weekly debrief or whatever the hell it is, right? They even say, James Allison himself said it, that no, a Formula 1 car isn't the best because it's the fastest. It's the one that works best across all circuits. Range of tracks.
Yes,
right.
The compromise.
If you could get, and I remember this quite well because James Allison, bless him, he's one of the good guys.
He's fantastic.
He's worked at title-winning cars before, right? He knows what the hell he's talking about, right? If anyone from Mercedes I trust is him, right? And he when he had that sit down in the summer break or something like that, and he was talking about, like, they did this whole interview about, oh, how's next year car going to be? It's like well, we have to look at the whole season, what tracks are going to be on it, and if we could aim for let's say a car that's optimized for 75% of the tracks, we could kind of make do with the other 25%. It's a percentage game,
right?
Yeah, it's a percentage game. It's not even like, okay, there's 20 races on the calendar. We'll make sure our car works across 18 tracks, right? Because no 2 track is exactly the same, obviously, but there's similar characteristics. And what they do is they take the percentage of which tracks, say, for example, have... so if you look at all the tracks, say most of the tracks next year have a lot of slow speed corners. Okay, so what they'll do is like, okay, out of the 23 tracks, they'll just focus their car on slow speed corners and traction and aero and all that stuff. So that will cover, let's say, about 75. If they could cover 75% of slow speed of the calendar optimized for slow speed corners, they win the championship. Why the hell does no one actually think about this thing and they just go on feelings? This is what's bugged me the most.
Because I will tell you why. Because people,
they're not blessed.
Because people are interested in forming a narrative about something rather than actually looking at what it is. Their narrative is Lewis was robbed of the championship. That's why they ignored the 21 races before. Their narrative is that Lewis is in a slower car, which he, by the way, was not.
It's slower than last year's car because of the regulations.
And and last year's car was like 8 tenths faster than anybody else, so it's kind of like even now. But not even that. It's like
they haven't even been nerfed.
They haven't. That's the whole thing. And by the way, people want to talk about the regulations hit them. Do you guys remember it? And I remember this vividly. When the new regulations came out, before the testing, during the testing, the articles that first appeared, everybody was shocked because everybody thought that the high rake cars, such as Red Bulls, would actually be depleted more by these regulations. And everybody thought that the Mercedes, which has a low rake concept, would actually benefit from these rules. So this whole idea that Mercedes were nerfed, shut up.
Sure. No. All they did was re-optimize their package and their setup. That's I don't know if you guys have saw that interview with Mike Elliott, again another top bloke at Mercedes.
Yes.
Right? I'm no way shitting on their technical team. They are brilliant, right?
The best.
Obviously that's why they won the constructors. Right? It's they made the best car. If you win the constructors, that means you have won the championship in the best car. That whole Lewis won the championship in or whatever. Max didn't win the championship in the best car because guess what? Red Bull didn't win the constructors. So there's literally a trophy for it. But
and
even Mike Elliott.
I think the thing is too, is like sometimes you have to go and say, there's a lot of things that happen throughout the season, right? And sometimes the best team and the best team in this sense, the best car doesn't win. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it changes throughout the entire season. Red Bull had the best car in portions of the season, but it doesn't mean they had it in the full range. If you have Perez down the line, well, yeah, I think they could have won the championship. They weren't that far behind, but there was instances that Perez did not perform, a driver did not perform, and a car that was better, and now you have this happen. I mean, look at
and Perez admits
Mercedes was lucky to have it happen with how many times Bottas got logged down in like P8. Sometimes the best team doesn't win, but it's how you perform in the season. And if you come out on top there, that's fine. It doesn't matter if you have the best or you don't have the best. It's how you finish.
Yes.
And just because it's not how you like it to finish doesn't mean that it's robbed.
And Andrew, on that point quickly, just sorry to cut you, but on that point, you're exactly right. It's about performance. It's about what you can extract from the car as well. Even if the chips are down, how are you going to respond? How are you going to use the situation? Prime example, in the second half of the season, the race in the Netherlands. Yes, Max got the pole position. Yes, maybe on raw ultimate pace, Red Bull had the advantage. He was up against two Mercedes for the whole 72 laps. It was I would just watch the race. It was excruciating. He was put through all the motions, and he got out there and he won that race because he just kept his cool, even though he was in a disadvantageous position. The race in Kota, that's prime Mercedes territory. He was pushed all the way through by Lewis. He survived. He got the performance in. The start at Mexico when he was P3, okay, you can say, well, maybe P3 is pretty good position to start in Mexico. Okay, but that move that he did around the outside on the braking on both Mercedes, absolutely
had to win that race.
Absolutely sublime. And this is what I mean by saying the most complete performance. This was one of the, I'll put my hands up, one of probably the best performance by a driver I've ever seen in my life. Go
The
ahead,
thing
Andrew.
was that I saw that was probably the stat, and you kind of touched on it, was what he had two DNFs, and I think
Yeah.
the Hungary, he got taken out in Hungary.
Yes. Yes.
Besides that, he did not finish lower than P2. He
In none of the
podiumed
races.
on every race. Something didn't happen to him. And
Amazing.
And so, like, the thing is you have to talk about consistency. It's absolutely unreal. And we're talking about a driver that, if you dig up our old podcast, that I think all of us had very big gripes with. I think all of us
Yes.
went on
Yeah.
rants that he's not consistent. He's too brash. He's too reactive. He needs to calm down. He needs to have, all these mature attributes come out.
Mhm.
And this was the season that he really showed what he could do. And Red Bull gave him the car.
Yeah.
And
Honda
Andrew,
gave
and
him the
also,
engine.
and also an engine as well, exactly. And the thing is like people say, well, this was his 7th year in Formula One. Yeah, well, but the first time you fight for a championship, I don't care how experienced you are, I don't care where you come from. The first time you fight for a championship, it's so difficult. It's nothing like you ever experienced ever before. You're going
Wasn't
up
fighting
against
for anything.
Yeah, exactly. And
Years
you
before.
you
The
you go
pressure
up.
is on. Yeah.
The pressure is on, and you go up against Lewis Hamilton and the juggernaut of a team that Mercedes is, and you win? Are you fucking kidding me? It's just unbelievable.
It's unreal what he was able to do. And I want to say this too, is we've done a lot of stuff. Technical team at Mercedes, as Raz said, did a fabulous job. I mean, that's the reason why they've won 8 of them straight. They're absolutely unreal if you're talking about consistency. I mean, Max was the consistent driver, but that team is absolutely insane.
Yes.
And the point of, I could have, if Lewis came out on top, I would have been a little, because how the performances Max came out with and stuff. But I mean, and yeah, you can say the whole Silverstone incident and everything, but in everything, that's racing.
And every year there's always an incident.
Exactly. And Lewis had one of probably his best seasons fighting for a championship to date. I mean, some of his performances this year are going to go down to some of his best ever. I mean, to be on the brink of winning an 8th title. I mean, 10 laps away.
The last time he was actually tested this hard was against Nico Rosberg.
Yeah. And I mean, it's been
he performed better this year. Yeah.
And
I mean, it felt better this year because it wasn't an in-house fight, right? It was a proper fight between 2 teams, which is what we want. And just touching on that whole thing, facts and stats and everything like that. There's another thing to note, that when you're fighting for your first world title, unless you're in a Mercedes like Rosberg was, it was always going to be a bit dirty like this. And as Adrian Newey alluded to, earlier on this year, that in all the championship fights he's been with, remember, he's got a vast load of experience from the 90s right the way through to the 2010s. Well, the first half of the 2010s. He said it's never ever been this political.
Yeah.
And that's been the main problem, the detractions and the mind games that they tried to play from Mercedes.
It really takes out, and
it drains, and that's what causes all the rife between the fan bases and everything like that. And then you end up being branded a racist.
And well, it's not that I think, honestly, all this stuff that he's doing, they're trying to help Hamilton, right? Yeah. But I think, in a sense, they are.
Well, it is art of war, essentially.
Yeah, but they're not.
Right,
But in the big scheme of things, I think it's really downplaying their own drivers' abilities throughout the entire season.
Yeah.
Well, by doing all this,
because it kind of dumbs down, like, oh, we need to win. Lewis needed this. Lewis had a season of a champion. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, I would say, one of his best seasons to date of all his title runs. I think he probably had a better season this year than his title wins.
Yeah, and because his title wins. Let's break down his title wins, okay? Apart from 2008, we're not going to include that. His title wins at Mercedes.
Oh yeah, I mean, you have to say 16, right? And I would say 14 too. It was a pretty good, because he had Nico there.
Yeah.
But ever since, I mean, he he had to do well, right? You had to win races. You had.
Yeah, you were in the best
car.
car. You're the best driver, driving at the top of your abilities. You've had nothing really to,
But you see something. I mean, I have to say, probably top 3 drives I've ever seen him do ever was Brazil. Absolutely insane weekend. If anyone questions his ability of being questioned as one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time, you watch that race and you can be swayed easy. It was unreal. I haven't seen much like it. So I want to give credit to him, and it's just a shame that, in a sense,
they've all been very sore about it.
Yeah, Mercedes is taking kind of away from his ability. And I just.
But then again, he's also a part of it because he also didn't arrive to the gala, for example, and stuff like that.
But I don't think the gala thing is that big. I think, look, okay, you lost.
No, it's basically a protest more than anything.
Yeah, but that's about class as well.
Yeah, but I don't think Lewis has to be there. Yes, would have been nice for him to be
Well,
here.
technically he does. Because he's one of the top 3 drivers of all championships. Because it wasn't just the Formula 1 championship. It was the others as well. You had WEC and you had WRC and karting and
rallycross.
I think in terms of criticism, I'm just going to oversee it. You know, in a sense, like the amount of emotion stuff that goes through someone's head, and to do that at that level for 14 years, 15 years, I think, you know what, I'm going to miss a night. And that's.
But Andrew, don't you think
the thing was Toto? Yeah. I don't like the spokesperson that he's become in this sense, and this skate.
The thing is, Toto. Yeah, touching on Toto.
He should have been there, out of respect. And
James Allison went. The guy who's the actual.
And I think Lewis did fine in terms of congratulating. I mean, he went over to the Max. He took part of the celebrations. Yeah, he didn't park on the straight, but it's like, dude, he just lost the title, and they're like,
that's fine. That's
like
fine.
How
that's understandable.
Say, oh yeah, now we have to have 3 interviews in the course of 5-10 minutes of a title fight on the last track, and they have to interview each of those drivers 3 times within the course of 10-15 minutes. Can they just
and it's
have
the same answers?
Can they have a moment of just shutting down? That's why you see Lewis, I think, has to just wrap his head around something and just sit there for a second. He doesn't. They don't have any peace. And
but the thing is, but wasn't Nico hurt when he lost in 14 and 15, and he still arrives at the gala?
Oh yeah, that's.
When he lost
fine.
in 15, when he lost in 14, I was actually there.
Yeah.
And he basically was, I could see the pain on his face, but I kind of this was me as a Rosberg / Michael fan at the time. I was like, because in that race he basically DNF'd. If you think about it, the fact that his power unit and his ERS basically went kaput.
Yeah.
Right. So, I saw the pain on his face, but I was able to get a word with him. It's like, look, man, you did your best, and unfortunately you got nerfed like that. But let's hope you come back fighting next year. And he was like, yeah, I've been in a bit of pain, but that's fine. That's understandable in the heat of the moment and everything like that. But let's move it on quickly. My main point is Toto, right? Unfortunately, has never, since he came into F1, has never lost. This is the first time he's lost. Let's be honest, right?
He's not used to it.
And he's not used to it. I mean, he's never been used to it. And,
really badly. And you would think that
and at the same time, he won as well.
Yeah, it's not like he lost everything. Yeah, it's not like they finished P5. It's not like they were Ferrari last year.
Yeah, well, it's not like they basically got McLaren 2008, right? Whereby being disqualified from the championship. They still get the fucking money, which is worth every penny of it. And as Horner said, when he texted him, congratulations, it's like, yeah, but you got the money, And he's right. At the end of the day, and that money gets distributed among the whole Mercedes team, but he treated like someone actually died. But yeah, no, it's
it was Toto was completely unprofessional, and he
was unhinged. He was unhinged,
and it's the point that I don't like the team anymore. I wish the best for Lewis. I wish the best for George. I don't like Mercedes.
I like their technical team. Their
No,
technical
and I'll
team
give
is
respect
absolutely
to I'll give
brilliant.
respect to the constructor and the builders and stuff. But in terms of who's at the head of it and how they handle the situation, I
Who's
don't
the
like it.
face of the
Yeah,
team is what you're trying to say. Yeah.
I just can't do it anymore.
And what kind of pisses me off is that Toto, for all his, he's come under a lot of shit, and some of that's been also, of course, justified. But I remember, as a Nico fan, 14 through 16, as bad as it got between the two sides of the garage, he was always he was like, okay, I don't want you to crash, but he was always open for them fighting. And he never really got it away. I think he freaked out a bit too much after Belgium 2014. I think he was a bit too vocal after that. But you can understand that because he was a team principal and this was like the first time it happened. So
Right.
fine, a little slide. But overall,
And it was the first lap.
yeah.
And
You can
even Lauda
understand.
said if they crashed on the last lap, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right.
But why on the first lap?
Yeah, and so you could let that slide, but overall, 14 through 16, Toto was in a very difficult position, and he handled it greatly. And I respected him. Fantastic. He did a fantastic job for the sport, allowing both of those guys to race and not interfere too much, right? But lately, he's just had a slide, like totally. And it's so bad to see someone handle himself in that way, who's won so much, who claims to be, for the best interests of the sport. And I'm sure he does have the best interests of the sport. But listen, you find out the true character of people when the chips are down.
Right.
Well, as Lauda used to say, and I'm actually speaking of Lauda, this year would have been handled much better if
If he was
Lauda
there.
would have been on Toto's side, keeping him on a proverbial leash in a sense, because Toto was just so unhinged this year, right?
Yeah.
And it all boiled down to that. Because if Lauda would have been there, he would have told him, no, don't do this bloody press conference. Go attend the bloody gala, right? And just be a man about it and go get him next year. And Lauda used to say, I mean, we've all seen Rush and
Yes.
everything. He said that we learn more in defeat than we do in victories. So
Yes.
on that note, I'll call it.
Yeah, I think
call it.
I think we'll call it for now. I think we still have a lot to cover from it, and I mean it's not like we had 3 months of off season, and I want Greg in here.
Yeah, we'll do a full season review
yeah.
at some point. Yeah,
Yeah,
with
and
Greg.
I think we can also say this is going to be like part 1 of probably many parts that we're going to go, and we'll probably try to release them in weeks' time, kind of deal, like a normal podcast, and we'll just kind of more cross-examine. I want to look at our predictions for the beginning of the season to what happened.
Oh my God.
I want to.
Greg owes me 450 euros.
Yeah, Greg owes money. I have all the bets and our finishes and everything in notes. I want a full season recap, and then exactly where we go from here with more information between FIA investigating all their own fuck ups and the 2022 cars, new regs, our predictions on who's going to be the dark horse. So I think we got a lot to cover.
Yeah, we'll do that in another part. But yeah.
So, well, thanks guys for joining. We'll do it again here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll see you guys soon.
All right. Peace.